I never planned on becoming a landlord, but when it came to tax, I literally had zero idea where to start from. Someone would just come and say, just claim it. But at the same time, another people will come and say, just don't. So my first question is, everyone keep mentioning about this word called wholly and exclusively. What does that mean?
Okay, so what it means is it relates to whether the expense was spent completely, if you like, and only for the property that it relates to, or it could be a group of properties. Okay. Now, if it's specifically, say, a boiler for a particular property, okay, that expense could be attributed to that one property, so that would be wholly and exclusively for that property. But let's say it's accountancy fees across a number of properties. The breakup of that means you need to understand how that is broken up across the properties, and especially if those accountancy fees, say, include your personal tax return. That's not part of your rental business. So when things are partly for yourself, when you have an expense which is partly for yourself and partly for your business, you need to work out which one is which value is part of the business and which value is part of related to yourself.
So it's basically saying, did I buy this because I'm the landlord?
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. What is important to remember is that you keep the expenses for the rental business separate from those expenses for yourself. And where you can't do that for whatever reason, we need to find a way to break up that expense that makes sense.
So this is the one that I keep seeing people arguing about. What does a repair versus improvement means? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, so if it's a repair, it means putting something back, fixing it back into its original condition as like when you bought it from new. So for example, if you're talking about a kitchen and the cooker is broken, you replace the cooker. Okay, that's what that means. And it's just the sort of same cooker as it was before. Now, an improvement is where you make a significant change to that, and it adds new functionality to that, to that thing. So let's say you fit a new kitchen. Is that a repair or an improvement? Well, if it's a kitchen that's very similar to the one that you've replaced, it's a repair. But if it's a completely brand new, fully designer kitchen that replaced just a bulk standard kitchen that's got like all added extras that weren't there before, like maybe it's got an island or something like that, makes it look nice and fancy, and a bar area and stuff like that, then parts of that would be considered an improvement because that puts a greater level of function. It increases the function of the property.
So let's test me. The boiler breaks, I just replace it.
Okay, so if you replace it with a like-for-like boiler, then that's a repair. If you, say, put in air conditioning, there wasn't air conditioning before, so that's an improvement.
Suppose the kitchen is perfectly usable, but I need a new one because I think it will look better. So,
okay, so this is a bit of a funny one. It's probably going to be a repair, even if you've got like a basic kitchen and then you put in a really fancy kitchen, but you don't change, you don't increase the functionality of that. You don't put extra cupboards in, or you don't put in like a 5-ring cooker or over instead of a 2-ring cooker. Okay, if you don't increase the function of it, it stays the same. So even if you spend on like tens of thousands on a really expensive kitchen, that may still be classified as a repair. You really need to be changing the functionality of that kitchen. So if you had a kitchen, if it was just a kitchen, but then you made it a kitchen/dining room or a kitchen and breakfast bar, then parts of that would be classified as an improvement.
So then spending money does not automatically mean that I can claim it.
No, this is true. A lot of people just think that, oh, I've spent this is an expense, I can claim all of it. And like I said, it depends on what the expense relates to, who it relates to. Does it relate to the rental business or the individual? But it also relates to whether it can be repaired or improved. And as you can see from my sort of explanation, those rules are a little bit complicated, and there are some exceptions to the rule. So it's always best to get expert advice on this. You've come with some tough questions, and I'm not surprised it's caused confusion. The honest answer is always ask the expert.
So you have to give me some good news now. So what are the expenses that a landlord can usually claim?
Yeah, so the obvious three are accountancy fees, letting agent fees, and also landlord insurance. Also, if you've got any sort of compliance checks that you need to do, like gas safety certificates, that can also be claimed as well. And then you have to get into like the maintenance, repairs, and working out which ones apply and which don't apply, and then any other expenditure. So if you're traveling to your rental property to fix your rental property, then those travel costs can also be considered as well.
So you mean keeping all those receipt actually matters?
Yeah, it does. I think in case if HMRC ever came back to you and questioned any of the expenses, you need to have those receipts to back you up. I just put them in a shoebox, but I keep a record of them in a spreadsheet. That's how I personally do it.
You know, I used to think I remember everything, but literally after 2 weeks, I forgot like half of my payments were for.
Yeah, we see this quite a lot, and that's why it's so important to keep records. You think when you start out, you think it's easy to do, especially if you're an accidental landlord. This is not something that you set out to do. It was never your goal to be a landlord. But yeah, so even though it's an accident, it's still your responsibility to keep a track of that income and expenditure. So yeah, so make sure you do that.
So what's the one mistake that you keep seeing people making over and over again?
Yeah, the obvious one, of course, is the fact that they've got an expense and they think that expense automatically is claimable, and so they just put it through, and they've just put all of their expenses through, and they don't consider the sort of complexity of the rules. That's why the accountants and tax advisors are there. But then the other one is where landlords try to make a claim for their own time as an expense. Unfortunately, that one doesn't work at all. Oh, and one more, mortgage payments don't work in the way that people think they do. A lot of people think that mortgage expense is deductible. It doesn't work like that, and there's a lot of rules there on that one.
I just feel like this needs its own different episode. What do you think?
Yes.
You know, the biggest thing that I've taken away today is understanding your expenses is more important than filing your tax return itself.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because if you don't know where that actually counts, you can't keep the actual record of everything at first place.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why we see so many people signing up for RentalBux. It keeps all of your income and expenditure in one place for your entire property portfolio. And what it means is that you can do your bookkeeping as you go. So you're not stuck remembering which expenses apply to which property or which part of your portfolio months later down the line. So if you're an accidental landlord like Annie here, or you have or you're just starting out on your landlord journey, then come to RentalBux and find out more about our MTD software and how it's easy to record your income and expenses. And if you just want some advice, you can also give us a call.